Hey class, welcome. I thought that song was so appropriate as we're wrapping up the week. It's Friday. I wanted to take the opportunity to stop by, speak with you, go over a couple things, and put a face with my introduction. So I have had the opportunity to read a number of the introductions and view your photos. Thank you so much for posting your photos. I do that in an online class periodically just to try to build that personal relationship, because sometimes hiding behind a computer, we never get to really converse or see one another. So thank you all for sharing your pictures. I had the opportunity to look at some wonderful pictures and learn a lot about each of you. There are a few of you who still have not posted your discussion board. So I wanted to be clear on how discussion boards work. So if you notice, each week we will complete 2 chapters, 1 and 2 for this module. You have 2 weeks to complete it, and 3 and 4 subsequently following that. However, your initial discussion board, meaning your initial discussion board is always due that Thursday of the first week. So for module 1 this week, everyone should have posted their initial discussion board for chapter 1, chapter 2, and your introduction yesterday. A number of you did not, but don't worry. I understand we're still getting acclimated to school and how everything is going to work. But just for future references, make sure that you post your initial response on Thursday. Now, you have up until that following week till when it closes to actually post your reply. But I do that to make sure that everyone has ample opportunity to post their reply to students. So make sure you do that. If you have not done so, you need to go in and get your discussion board posted. With your quizzes, you still have, again, the entire 2-week period to actually complete your quizzes. But your initial discussion board, you want to get that in right away. So those of you who have not completed that, make sure you go ahead and get that done today. So what are we talking about as we start in Module 1? We're looking at Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Today, I just want to spend a few moments on Chapter 1 talking about the history of victimology. Why are we studying victimology? How did it evolve into what it is today? So victimology is merely simply a form of studying victims of a particular offender. Why are victims becoming victims? It first emerged during the 1940s and 1950s, as you were seeing in your book. However, we want to be careful using the word victim. It's a slippery concept. If you notice in your book, Nash notes that as a matter of law, whether someone is a victim of a crime may depend, among other things, on the type that the injury is there. Some people don't like to be referred to as a victim. So we have to be careful how we use that term. Nevertheless, it's definitely an important concept that we need to study. So when looking at victimology is the study of victim, the offender, as well as the society. So it's everyone, the victim, the offender, as well as society, taking that into concept. I want to go over a few of the review questions at the end of your book. Again, in reading Chapter 1, you should be able to answer these. But if I was to say, what was the first form or the first laws dealing with victims? Hopefully you would say the Code of Hammurabi. The Code of Hammurabi was first known as the written law that provides rights to victims. Realize that we need to do something to compensate or outline what happens to victims. So understanding that if we talk about that, that's the first form. When you see that, that's the first form. So some of the most significant developments in the law in the victims movement. Victims movement, I mean, when did it become such a big issue or a big concept? When we started concentrating on it. There's been a plethora of events that have contributed to that, but some of the major contributing forces have been the feminist movement, as well as the development of the civil rights laws. Big influential things in dealing with victims and victims' rights. So with the feminist movement, why? What was the big deal behind the feminist movement and what was going on there? It was the first time that people actually placed and looked at feminists, forced us to realize that women were victims not only of violent crimes in the streets and the cities, but also in the workplace, sexual harassment, workplace environment, family violence. So it was an opportunity to look at, not just to say that they're being victimized by strangers on the street, but sometimes in their home and at their workplace by acquaintances. So the movement definitely still is very important. I'm not saying that males are not victimized. That's not what we're saying. But we are looking at things that contributed to the victims movement. So I wanted to highlight some of that. Also looking at some of the differences between the different theories of victimology. Make sure you look at that. I have some notes here I wanted to go over. Carmen, the difference in his development of victimology. Carmen correctly points out that victimologists view the dynamics of the victim's role in society. So they view their role in society from a multiple disciplinary point of view. So looking at different things, not just one contributing factor, but taking in multiple facets of looking at what role did this victim contribute or play into society. Hindelag and his colleagues examined exposure of guardianship as it relates to victimization. They call this theory the lifestyle approach to victimization. So understanding the difference where we have these different theories of what one believes why somebody is a victim or what they have done to contribute or maybe make themselves a victim. And again, as we touch on some of these topics, it's going to get a little sensitive and, especially when we talk about it, it's not saying that anybody, I'm not saying, correction, because when we start looking at some of these theories, I am not saying or presenting to you that some people put themselves in situations to make themselves their own victim. That's not what I'm saying. However, when we look at some of the theories, it's going to say what have they done, or what has society or what has the individual done to contribute to that. So chapter 1 is really about an overview of the evolution of victimology, studying victims, how it's been contributed to society. So make sure you look at that as you prepare for your test. Some of the chapter objectives was distinguish between criminology and victimology. I want you to be able to tell the difference between that. Discuss how laws have affected victims. So this is a very important thing. Different laws have come into effect to actually help a lot of victims. You need to be able to identify and talk about that and understand social forces that have impacted the development of victimology. So what are different things that have transpired society and socially that have caused or contributed to the study and the development and the evolution of victimology. And finally, the last one is to be able to distinguish between those different victimology theories. So be able to distinguish between those. And it's a couple that we're going to hit on chapter 1. So as you're reading chapter 1, I would suggest that you break it down. Excuse me, after you look at the history, look at that theorist and what did that theorist believe? What did they believe as far as why or how victims are studied and what victimology say? So to be able to break that down. I'm going to hit on chapter 2 next week just to give you a couple pointers and go through that with my video chats for some of you who have not had me online class. I do not go back and edit my videos, so I may stumble over words, I may make mistakes like I told you previously, but I definitely keep going with the flow. So hopefully you just go with the flow. If you have questions as you're going through your chapters, but definitely reach out to me. Let me know if you don't understand something, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. So as you're wrapping up this week, preparing for your weekend, I hope that you're getting chapter 1 completed, moving on to chapter 2. Again, you have this module open for another week. Each module is open for 2 weeks. So you have a little bit of time to work on that. I'm looking on Blackboard as I go through to see anything that's going on here. So for module 1, I have it closing on the 18th. Okay, if you don't get it done by the 18th, if you get it done by the 19th, no points are going to be deducted. We kind of had to press this first week kind of hard because we had class and then we have a lot to cover in this textbook. But this week, again, if you don't get it done by the 18th, don't worry. Get it done by the 19th. Even if you don't get it done, just 19th, by the end of the 19th. You don't want to get so far behind when you're trying to play catch up. So next week, we move on to Module 2, which will be open from the 19th through the 21st. 19th through the 21st. Wait a minute. I'm sorry, from January 19th to February 1st. I'm looking at the date. I'm like, wait a minute, there's not enough time. January 19th through February 1st, Module 2. January 19th through February 1st. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. If not, enjoy your Friday. I'll talk to you guys soon.